So Trump's so-called revised travel ban came into partial effect today at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as a result of the Supreme Court's ruling this week. And given that it's a huge bureaucratic endeavor to actually implement this order and make sure that all the relevant bureaucrats have the correct directives, we are expecting some level of chaos, ineptitude, and all the expected pitfalls of what this entails. So there are legal aides who have set up at the terminal to assist with anybody who might have a family member or loved one who is caught up in the bureaucratic jumble. And as of now, there's a whole lot of drama to report on, but these kinds of things are pretty tedious. So we will be sifting through that tedium for your edification.
Neither do I. You don't see me mention stuff like that. Our truck is what we're doing right now. I only do it if everybody kind of already knows to clear things up. That's the only reason I do it. Yeah.
Given the ambiguity of the Supreme Court's standard that they promulgated, meaning the bona fide relationship standard, do you worry that individual customs agents might not have the capacity or to be able to interpret that standard on their own? Is there too much ambiguity there?
I was worried about that going in, but now I am less concerned about that from a customs official standpoint. The reason I'm less concerned about it is it was made very clear that if a visa holder enters this country, the executive order will have no impact on that visa holder. By contrast, and that visa, someone without a visa couldn't get on the airplane in the first place to travel to this country. So the standards that are at stake in terms of interpreting who ought to get a visa aren't really relevant to those who are implementing these orders here. Those standards are really important moving forward when it comes to what the State Department is going to say about whether someone's eligible for a visa. But the customs worker here doesn't have to contend with those issues because the question is a pretty basic one. Is there a visa or is there not? And if there's not, there may be other reasons why someone's allowed to stay, but if there is, the executive order has no impact.
Do you think there's any danger that given the relative lack of havoc this time around, at least compared to January, that there might be less public attention to the fundamental arbitrariness of the order?
I don't know. I mean, one of the aspects of being in public service right now is engaging all of us as citizens of this country to assure that the ideals on which the country is based are actually realized. And I think it's very important. One of the reasons to be here is to underscore that we have to be vigilant about protecting those rights. Whether people get complacent about that, I can't say. All I can say for sure is that we're not going to in my office.
Could you just talk a little more specifically about how Los Angeles in particular has been impacted? What circumstances are unique to Los Angeles that have produced an adverse effect from all this?
Well, as we're well aware, we have immigrant populations from almost every nation in the world here, and those populations, in many cases now for other reasons, are living in fear every day in our society. We have university students from all over the world who come back and forth. Our economy here is based heavily on tourism. There are so many aspects of immigration issues, travel bans and so forth that could have a huge impact on everyday life here on our streets.
Right. And in the order that was issued, a bona fide relationship, it was speculated, could exist for a student who has been granted admission to a university, but not necessarily for a prospective student who's coming to, say, tour the university, which speaks to sort of the arbitrary quality of all this.
Yes, I'm very concerned, again, about the State Department's interpretation, and I'm going to look with great care at what Hawaii filed, apparently, today in regard to that. I think that interpretation has been too narrow from everything I've seen so far. And again, just looking at the standpoint of just a family member, my grandmother doesn't have a bona fide relationship with me. That's what the State Department's first order says.
At least from San Francisco, Boston, Chicago. We heard
Okay, so I'm with Masih Fuladi, Advocacy Manager of CARE, the Los Angeles branch, and we are here at the Tom Bradley International Terminal. The Trump so-called travel ban has just gone into effect at 5 o'clock. That's, I don't know, half hour or so ago now. What happened in practical terms, do you think, at 5 o'clock?
So the new guidelines that the administration published last night go into play. CBP officers are now able to use their discretion to view whether an individual has a valid visa before the effective date of the executive order. And if they don't, they'll be able to, again, examine whether there's a familial tie. Realistically, we expect individuals who are traveling today to already have had their visas issued prior to the 26th. But what we're really here to do is monitor the situation, see if people are experiencing delays, if there's an abuse of power, or if the policies aren't being implemented correctly. And if they aren't, then we're here to take legal action.
And how would you be informed if there was some kind of abuse of power? How does it work mechanically? Would it be that the people who are waiting for family members to arrive would approach you at this table here that's been set up? How kind of in practice would that work?
That's actually a really good question. What we're doing is taking two different steps. One is we're telling everyone, if you're going to be traveling, please register your travel with CARE or one of the other great partners that are here. We have CARE LA representative, Public Council representative, ACLU, One Justice, Asian American Disability Justice, all present here today. Go ahead and report your travel before you come into the country. That way we have documents ready. We know we're in contact with your family members. Now if there's a delay and your plane has arrived and you haven't come out in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, that family member can be in contact with us and we can monitor it, see what's going on, and then take proper legal action. If you aren't able to register your travel before you're coming in, then what we're doing is, again, making our rounds with these groups. We have key flights identified that are coming in from Europe and other countries that we think impacted individuals possibly can be on, or at least individuals from Muslim majority countries. And then as those flights are coming on, asking your passengers, is there anyone that you noticed on the flight that didn't come out? Asking family members who might still be waiting here, is there anything we can do? And then we have a table set up here that says free legal advice. So people know enough and they've been seeing the cameras coming around, they've been seeing us walk around with intake forms and they can report incidents to us.
So, as you mentioned, there is a whole group of legal advocates here offering assistance. How does something like that come into existence? How is it organized? What kind of infrastructure is in place so that on relatively short notice you can assemble a group like this and get them to the airport and have all the resources that we need?
So I have to give a lot of credit to all of these established organizations who, once they saw that President Trump was elected into office, we got together, we started talking to one another, we recognized the rhetoric, the problematic rhetoric that he was using throughout his election, and we knew that we had to combine forces to make sure we had the capacity to deal with issues like this. So when the first Muslim ban came out, we set up infrastructure to be able to have access to attorneys, to volunteers, to translators, and we've maintained those relationships throughout this process. So there's a few people here today from different organizations, but there's many more volunteer attorneys who came out during the first Muslim ban and who have continued to express interest in helping out. If we need their resources, if we need their time, they've made themselves available and they're only a call away. Additionally, we have individuals outside protesting. There's actions being organized for next Friday. We just want to make sure that people understand this ban is just as problematic as the first ban, and we need to continue to press until the Supreme Court gets to hear the substance of this case in October.
Right. One issue that with this ban that you mentioned before is that it vests individual customs agents with a huge amount of power over. They believe somebody has a quote bona fide relationship with a U.S. person or entity. Is that a major factor, you think, that in terms of the ambiguity of that standard and how it would actually be enforced on the ground?
Not only how it would be enforced, but how it's being interpreted by the administration. So this bona fide relationship, we're saying that it's applicable to a daughter or son or a daughter, a brother or sister, but not a grandparent, not a fiance. It's very arbitrary. And again, you take a look at how this is going to separate families and the impact it has, especially on the refugee community. We're saying that relationships with a university or a business, a place of employment is okay, but then a relationship with a refugee resettlement organization isn't okay. So it's going to really impact those who need our assistance the most, our help the most, and need security and peace and all the values that America is supposed to stand for. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and we're limiting that with this Muslim ban, this discriminatory Muslim ban.
Yeah, familial bonds are important, obviously, but I always wonder, if you have just a platonic bond with somebody, so say you have a lifelong friend, and that friend resides in California, and they have and their friend is in Iran or something. How is that not a bona fide relationship? I mean, it just seems arbitrary.
I couldn't agree more. I think this administration has demonstrated a lot of times that they just want to put their agenda forward. They don't really care about the chaos that's caused or the people on the ground who are being impacted. For an administration that wants to make America great again, they're not doing a great job of it. They're tearing into the fabric of this country, which is relies on freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and we are really damaging how we look in the international community. We're supposed to be a country that stands up for people's rights, and that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, just another example of the arbitrariness. You could imagine a Sudanese student wanting to come to the United States and maybe tour different universities and determine whether they want to attend one. They may not have a pre-existing bona fide relationship with any of those universities, but they're there for a good faith. They're coming for a good faith reason, which is to view U.S. universities that they may want to enroll in. But they would presumably be barred under the criteria that have been promulgated.
Yeah, we're putting these barriers in place to come into this country, but we still want to take that leading role in the world. And again, there's a conflict there. We have to understand that any policies that we're putting into place, how does it really impact how the world sees us, and how does it really impact Muslim Americans here and other impacted groups here? And I don't think this administration has thought that through. I think they're really searching for a victory after being rejected court after court after court, and this is the only thing that they were able to kind of muster out. But hopefully when October comes around, the Supreme Court will rule in a way to make sure that these relationships and this discrimination that's clearly taking place doesn't stand for long.
And finally, Southern California in particular is home to a lot of refugee populations, so it's probably just been disproportionately impacted by these various bans. Just talk a little bit about how this region in particular is taking the brunt of all that's going on.
Sure, I'm an Iranian American. The first time around when the Muslim ban came, Iranians at LAX were disproportionately targeted. The translators that we needed most than all were people who knew how to speak Farsi. There's also a large Syrian population, many of whom are refugees, as well as individuals in the Yemeni community who reside in Los Angeles. So anytime, LAX is one of the largest airports in the country, anytime any kind of policy like this comes into play, it's going to disproportionately impact Southern California and the diverse community here. And that's unfortunate because the diversity of LA is what America really stands for, and is what we should be working towards, not trying to limit.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.